Hi everyone, it's Chris at Cork and Crown, back in the cider shed again. A really empty cider shed actually, because I went at the market yesterday and sold absolutely everything I had. Everything I had, which is great, but now I have no stock. So the plus side of that is this week I get to go to Herefordshire, so I go there on Thursday, stay overnight, do Somerset on Friday, come back ready for the market on Saturday. So I'm going to have lots of new stock. I've been in touch with the cider makers, and it's a good time of year because everything's just being ready for release from 2019 vintage. So Cummaddock and Greg's Pit for sure have just got some of their new release vintage stuff, which I'm going to pick up. I've been sent their lists, have a look at those. I've already placed my order with James at Greg's Pit, so that's great. So we're going to have some new stuff to try. Cummaddock as well, some new vintage releases, going to have some of that to try. Going to go to Ross on Wye as well, going to go to Gwatkin's as well, Secret Orchard, Bridge Farm. So yeah, it's going to be a good trip. Pick up lots of cider, bring it back, and I'll have to try all the new stuff as well, which is a hardship obviously, but I will film that so we can sort of experience it together to some degree, then hopefully you can get hold of some at some point. That'd be great. Anyway, so I haven't got a lot of cider to try. However, I've been on a bit of a cheese kick with these films lately, so I thought, well, let's just keep doing that. You know, didn't film anything yesterday, felt like doing something today, so I got hold of some cheese. I got hold of some blue cheese. We haven't done a blue cheese yet, and the blue cheese is called Colston Bassett Stilton. Okay, so a little bit of history about Stilton. So Stilton can only be made in, is protected, has a PDO. It can only be made in Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire and Leicestershire. Stilton is in Cambridgeshire, so you can't make Stilton in Stilton. It's a quirk of the PDO. It's because that's where it was sold originally. It was made in sort of the Midlands, but it was shipped to Stilton, which was a big horse town on what was a Roman road, Ermine Street it was called, and then the Great North Road, and then the A1 effectively. So it's a big horse town on that road. So people travelling up from London or down to London would often stop in this town. A lot of inns, hostelries, etc. So it was a big market for food. So there's a guy there who worked for Coots Bank, I think, who saw this. There was a market, knew there was good cheese being made in sort of Nottinghamshire, Derbyshire, Leicestershire region, shipped it to Stilton, sold it. Okay, so when people travelled north with a bit of Stilton or travelled south with a bit of Stilton, people would say, where did you get this from? It's delicious. And they would say, Stilton. So that's how it came to be called Stilton, even though that's not where it was manufactured. There you go. It's a blue cheese. There are only, I think there's 6 producers of Stilton now. It went down to 5. I think it's gone back up to 6 again. Colston Bassett is for my money the best one. It's the one that's done completely by hand still. It's a very complicated process. I'm not going to get into it, but basically it's a very slow make, acidification. You let the curd set very slowly. You then cut the curds after quite a while. You then you move them to another shallower vat to sit overnight and acidify. Now that transition, you can tip it or pump it. Colston Bassett, hand ladle it scoop by scoop from one vat to the other. It takes a lot of work. I've tried doing it. I lasted about 10 minutes and my arm gave up. There aren't many fat Stilton makers. It's hot work and it's hard work. And because they're being more delicate with the curd, not pumping it aggressively or tipping it, they keep more moisture in the curd, which lends Colston Bassett a much more creamy, moist end result. You know, a lot of Stiltons are kind of acid, metallic. Colston Bassett's are much creamier, smooth. They're also pierced a bit later. So the flavour development happens before the piercing, and literally you pierce it with needles. You don't inject it, you pierce it. And what that does, it creates holes for air to go in. And air goes in and it activates the blue moulds, the Penicillium roqueforti, because they're aerobic, these moulds. So unless air gets to them, they simply won't grow. And you will see bluing in cloth-bound cheeses and the like, where there's been a crack and air's gone in and penetrated. It's the same stuff. It's just then it's happened by accident, and with Stilton it's happened on purpose. Now nobody woke up one morning and thought, oh, I'll make a blue cheese. These things would have been bumped and cracked over time, and air would have got in and blued, and I guess people would have thought it was a fault, but actually people started to realise that where those blue moulds were, the blue moulds were breaking down the paste, breaking down the fats and the proteins, and creating something which was less acid, more complex, more delicious. So people said, go on, let's make the holes on purpose. That's how sort of blue cheese came about, really. So yeah, Colston Bassett, still making it by hand. It is pasteurised though, as is all Stilton. Has to be pasteurised. That's part of the PDO. When Stilton got its PDO in the early 90s, all Stilton at that point was being pasteurised. There'd been some food scares, and Stilton had been associated with them wrongly, I believe. So everyone started to pasteurise just because in the public perception they thought it would be better if they did, and people wouldn't be sort of scared about eating it. So when they applied for their PDO, it was all pasteurised. So when the PDO went through, it was classed as it said pasteurised. So rubber stamped, pasteurised. So you can't make a raw milk Stilton anymore. The closest thing to it is something called Stitchelton, which is basically made in Nottinghamshire to the exact recipe of a traditional Stilton, but with raw milk. Therefore, it's called Stitchelton and not Stilton. Okay. It is the only pasteurised cheese that would get into my top 10 cheeses in the world. It's really good. I really, really like Colston Bassett Stilton. Raw milk cheese has more potential for greatness because there's because you've got the natural cultures, lactic acid bacteria in the milk. You know, and nature does it that more diversely than a laboratory. We talked about something like this before. Therefore, if you leave the natural lactic acid bacteria in there, enzymes and so forth, you're going to get a more complex flavour potentially than if you pasteurise. However, I've had some terrible raw milk cheeses because the milk has great potential, the skill of the cheesemaker is also just as important. If I were a terrible chef, it wouldn't matter how expensive my ingredients were or how organic or whatever. If I was a bad chef, I'm still going to make something bad out of them. If I'm a great chef, but I have terrible ingredients, it's quite hard to make something great from that. Okay, so you need a good raw ingredient to make something great, but the skill of the cheesemaker, cider maker, whoever it happens to be, is also a big part in the end result. A lot of talking. So we have a look at some cheese. So here's my bit of Colston Bassett, procured yesterday from Mons Cheesemongers, one of my other people I work with. Here's a piece of Colston Bassett Stilton. Get this white thing out of the way so that it doesn't mess with my brightness quite so much. So there it is, Colston Bassett Stilton. I don't know if you can see it very well because it's quite bright and white, but nice orange paste, got sort of yellowy orange paste, ivory, sort of almost like a buttery coloured paste, I would say. You can see where the needles have gone in at the side. You can see where the needles have actually gone in. You can see the lines. Not too blue. So you want enough blue to break the cheese down to make it creamy, but not so much that all you'll taste is the blue, because the blue mould taste is strong. Rock 40 penicillin has a strong flavour, too much of it, and you'll undo all your great work with the paste because you will smother the flavour with blue. Okay, you won't be able to taste that paste effectively. Natural rind, and you can see the holes in the rind where the if I hold it there, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, but there you go, you can. Holes in the rind. You can see the bluing there. You can see the lines going in. There you go. So yeah, it's a top cheese. My mum doesn't like blue cheese. She loves this because it's got a sweetness, malty sweetness to it. So I'm going to cut a bit off and eat it. Actually, tell you what I'm going to do first. Let's get some cider. What should we do first? Let's go for, tell you what, Perry. Let's do a Perry. Let's do the Blakeney Red Perry from Gwatkin's. Okay. There we go. Bit of that. Blakeney Red, probably the most famous of the English Perry pear varietals. Blakeney's a region, town, village in the Forest of Dean, Gloucestershire, which is where it originates from. So that you can see from this that so it's much lighter in colour than a lot of the ciders that we've had. Much paler. This has almost got a rosé, hint of rosé to it, I would say, and almost like when you have things like certain wines, Alsatian sort of wines, the French Alsatian wines, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, sometimes you'll get sort of almost like a slight pink. Well, Pinot Gris especially, because Gris means grey, and you almost do get a greyish pink to it. And it's got a bit of that about it. It's got a hint of rosé about it. It's quite nice. It's actually, this is bright actually. Don't know if it's filtered, but it's certainly bright. Still, Perry pears are getting more common now. They died out pretty much. People just stopped making Perry in large part because Perry pears are very difficult to grow. They don't give you as much crop yield. If it goes wrong, it can go badly wrong. Yeah, so people just said, well, I'll just use apples instead because it's easier. Which is fair enough, I guess, to some degree. But perry can be amazing and delicious. I'm going to get some great perry actually this week, so we'll definitely try some perry in one of the tastings that I do very soon. Okay, so I'm picking this because it's sweet, and blue cheese always has high salt levels. It's part of the recipe. It's kind of required for the environment, for the malts to grow and stuff. You need that sort of saline conditions, and salt and sugar are opposites, and opposites attract. Okay, salt and sugar go great together. And I think I've said this before as well. If you want a pretty much guaranteed wine to go with cheese, a dessert wine, Sautillon, Tokay, pretty much always works, because cheese will always have acidity, and the sour and the sweet works, and cheese always has salt, and sugar and sweet and salt works as well together because they're opposites. They just attract. So yeah. Let's have a go. Let's try the cheese first, shall we? Pop that on the floor. I'm going to have a bit from near the rind because I love the rind on this stuff. Again, my totally unsuitable knife. Let's get this off here and eat it. So there's the salt, but it's balanced. It's integrated. It's not separate to the cheese. If you have cheese and then salt as a separate flavour, that is a fault. It should be part of the cheese flavour. If you ever had, for reasons I'm not going to go into, I once had a cheese that someone had accidentally not added any salt to, and we tried it, and we stood around for ages going, it didn't taste bad, it tasted of zip, nada, nothing. We had something in our mouths, it had a texture, and that was about it. And when somebody said, there's no salt, my brain lit up, because like, of course, I'd never had cheese without salt before, but that made me realise how important to the flavour salt is. Not too much, and not too little, and you want to have salt in there because it's a preservative. You know, if you didn't have salt in there, the cheese would be, you know, could go off in all sorts of crazy directions. It would be unpalatable. It would do things you didn't want it to do. Okay, salt keeps the microbes in check, and also seasons. It enhances the flavour. So you really do want salt in your cheese, but you want the right amount. Blue's always going to have more. This has got it, but it's integrated, and there's that malty sweetness, which I really like. This is a bit cold as well. If it's warmer, I think that maltiness is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Also, dark chocolate, I think I'm getting as well on the back end of this. This stuff, when it's warm, you can almost scoop it out. It's spreadable, it's smooth, it's broken down because it's been given time. About 4.5 to 5 months is pretty much the bang amount of time for a Stilton to age properly. At that point, it's completely creamy. It's completely broken down, but it's still fresh enough to eat. But you can scoop it, but you can almost scoop it out, put it in an ice cream cone and eat it. That's what I do when it's really good. Yeah. Whew, I enjoyed that. Could you tell? Okay, I'm gonna have a bit more of it, and then I'll try some of this perry. Let's have a look. Sweet and salt. It's like caramel, you know. That's the kind of same kind of pleasure I get from this as I get from salted caramel. Okay, really great cheese, man. Buttery. Straight away, bingo. That pear flavour, ripe pear. That's what I'm getting off this. It's great. But it's got that characteristic Gwatkin acidity, but it's quite a gentle acidity in this. It's just a gentle lactic acidity, which works brilliant with cheese because lactic acid is what you have in cheese. You know, perfect. Let's get like an elderflower hint or something at the top end as well. Great pairing. I mean, knocked it out of the park. Yeah. Sweet ciders, sweet wines. Seriously, try them with cheeses. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Anyway, I've already talked 15 minutes. And only for a small amount of time did I talk actually about this perry, which is a shame because this is meant to be a perry, like a cider and perry vlog, I believe they're called. But you know what? I've worked in cheese for 25 years. I can't help getting excited about cheese. The same way that I get excited about cider and perry, you know. And I know this stuff, so I might as well talk about it if I get the opportunity. Yeah, great. Get yourself some Colston Bassett and get yourself something sweet to, whether it's perry, cider or dessert wine. Get yourself something sweet to have with it. Seriously, seriously folks. Forget port. Port's too high in alcohol, I think. Alcohol is hot and it overwhelms the cheese. The good thing about dessert wines and the good things about these sorts of ciders and perries is lower alcohol. You don't get that burn, so it doesn't smother the cheese quite so much. It works much more. It's much more harmonious, in my opinion. Woo! Okay, there you go. I might make some more films before I go to Herefordshire / Somerset. I might not. I've got nothing to taste really that I haven't tasted already, so probably not. I might just take a few days off. But when I come back, I'm going to have a lot more stuff to try. I'm really looking forward to it. So guys, yeah, until then, thanks for watching, and until then, goodbye and cheers.